Music is the sound of the order and the chaos of the universe.
Well, it's like a code, you know, music is like an energetic code.
Music is, I think, it is strangely even a mystery to people that make it. And it is, in a sense, kind of a piece of magic.
You have your heart, and it has this rhythm, it has this beat, you know? And in order to survive, you know, your blood has to flow through your body, and you have to breathe in and out. Your lungs have to work, and it's all this kind of like, this orchestration in your body, and that's how you survive, and that's how you live. And if someone had never heard of music before, I would tell them that's what music is.
My name is Annie Drian, and it was my great honor to be the creative director of NASA's Voyager Interstellar Message Project. In late 1976, when the scientific mission of the Voyager spacecraft was being designed, Carl Sagan came to me and Tim Ferriss and asked us if we would join him and the great Frank Drake in designing a message to be affixed to each of the Voyager spacecraft. And the first thing that I found myself thinking of was a piece by Beethoven from Opus 130, something called the Cavatina movement, which I had first heard something like 15 years before. And when I heard this piece of music, the first thing I thought of was, Beethoven, how can I ever repay you? What can I ever do for you? Which would be commensurate with what you've just given me. And so as soon as Carl said, well, we have this message and it's gonna last 1,000 million years, I thought of him, and I thought of this great, beautiful, sad piece of music which Beethoven had written in the margin of the music. He wrote the word Sehnsucht, which is German for longing. And part of what we wanted to capture in the Voyager message was this great longing that we feel to be part of the cosmos, to attain a certain degree of cosmic citizenship. We really wanted to make this representative of the planet. You know, here was, I think, one of the first times a collection of world music, specifically world music. And so we were hoping that people would suddenly be looking at this music and thinking, wow, you know, this is the music that Earthlings make, and they make all different kinds of music, but there's something that ties it all together. And then, of course, the other audience was the extraterrestrials of our dreams, because that's as close as we could get to them, is dreaming about them, imagining them. And we were hoping that, you know, maybe things like passion and longing and joy and exuberance are not just limited to our narrow experience, but might be something, who knows, that might be felt on other worlds by beings of completely different kinds of evolution civilizations. So we thought that the vibrations of music would speak for us in ways that the machine itself and maybe the pictures and the other things that we had to offer wouldn't. And, you know, I guess some part of us subjectively, in a kind of egotistical way, we're hoping that people would hear the music of the earth and they would say, hey, that's a cool planet, you know, they're making some good music.
I can't imagine that they don't have music everywhere on every planet that's populated in the universe. It would be very hard to imagine an evolved species that didn't have it, some sort of equivalent to our music.
It's just a heavy and bizarre psychological phenomenon.
It's mind-blowing, you know, and it literally does take you somewhere else.
There are definitely times when I go there and it's a little bit outer body.
I can't give you a good answer on what is music. I feel like you're setting me up to just get crushed. No thank you. I'm not gonna fall for that one.
I don't believe that a musical idea starts in your brain. I believe it starts at a place before that we don't have any direct contact with.
We try to describe music, but it can't be, we can't put our finger on it.
It's as essential as breathing.
Music moves with the wind. It moves in the air. It moves through space.
It's probably some primal reaction to sounds, you know, to noises. I don't know. You imagine the cavemen sitting there like, you know, hundreds of thousands of years ago listening to the wind whistling through the canyons or something. I'm sure that made music of some description, you know. Some of them might have thought, wow, that's cool, and some of them might have been like, fuck, that's really freaking me out, man, you know. Could be a mammoth coming down. I don't know.
If I rub someone's ears really quickly, maybe it would like make this weird, maybe if I punch somebody in the ear, it might make this like frequency, and then if I started kind of singing over that and then gesturing really kind of crazily, maybe they would kind of understand what music was, but they'd probably just be really pissed off that I punched them in the ear.
Sex is at the heart of all that. You think anyone wanted, you know, learn to play guitar because they thought like that was going to be really like fulfilling for their soul, you know? Like, no, they want to get laid.
It's better than a wife, you know. To me, and I love my guitar, and so half the time when I sit on the side of the bed, I take my guitar and put it on the side of the bed with me and play, and then I take and throw it on the other side, on the other pillow there, and I wake up and the guitar's still in the same bed that I'm in. So that's my second wife.
There's higher parts and lower parts that are joined together and stretched out to vibrate with your body and make you feel different emotions.
It's a set of sounds that create in the listener a response that triggers something that, not necessarily pleasure, but something like an emotional resonance.
Music's a way of giving what you're feeling inside to the other person.
I'm gonna try and figure out a way to say this without sounding like an ass, because I don't know that that's possible.
You know when you're in the womb, you guys remember that? The womb? Sick. Isn't that fun? You have your mom's heartbeat going, you know, and it's just, you're kind of born into this rhythm. Like you're swimming around in this little thing, and you hear goo 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 goo.
Your body is constantly making music. It doesn't stop from the moment you're born till your last breath. You're constantly making music from inside.
I think of everything as music, like talking and like the sound of your lips when you're talking, or just even the subtlest sound you can hear it could be music. It is music.
Music makes you feel in your body like there's a message you have to say. You know, when you dance, there's a message. You don't even have to say the message you feel.
I heard this really cheesy thing once. Music is the house that sound lives in. But I don't really agree with that. I don't know. Music is culture.
We need to be understood, and that's what's so brilliant about music is you're not sitting down and like using language, but you're using like sound and feeling to feel less alone.
Makes me feel like, oh, people aren't so bad after all. You know, I tend to think like animals are way better than people, but then I hear music and I'm like, okay, people.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know where it comes from, but it's nice. I don't know.
An incoming beat is like the next wave coming on the shore, and the next wave is always going to come, and you can't just have the ocean suck back and get ready to make a wave, and then it never happens. And so almost for me, the changing of chords and the next rhythmic event in a piece is like the next wave coming onto the beach, and there's just no way to stop it.
I mean, music is made up of frequencies and things spinning faster and slower, which is a physical thing, and the air moving.
This idea of synesthesia, the association of a sound or a smell, a visual, taking those things and mixing them up. Music at its best is like a film where all those elements are creating a whole that lasts as a real, definite moment.
I don't know. It's kind of a quandary, talking about music.
It's a feeling, it's an emotion, it's a vibration that just fills your whole body and can lift you out of the depths of depression and make you feel fantastic. And it also piss you off too. Hi, I'm Eddie Kramer, and this is My Ear.
I'm Andy Vermilio, a research audiologist at the House Ear Institute in Los Angeles. And today we're going to talk about how sound travels through Eddie Kramer's ear. When sound enters Eddie Kramer's ear, it first strikes the structure called the pinna, which is that ear flap. And that pinna helps direct the sound into the ear canal. Inside the ear canal, we have a curved structure that leads to the eardrum. The ear canal actually functions to amplify the high frequency content of the sound. And that sound is then transmitted to the eardrum. The eardrum will vibrate and actually vibrate three small bones that are connected to the eardrum. Those are called the ear bones or the ossicles. You might remember those as the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup. And this system of the eardrum and the three small bones acts as a lever to actually amplify the sound a little bit more before it reaches Eddie Kramer's cochlea. In the cochlea, we have a ribbon-like structure called the basilar membrane, with high-frequency areas, mid-frequency areas, and low-frequency areas. So that's how the sound is dissected, if you will, in Eddie Kramer's cochlea. Also on the basilar membrane, we have outer hair cells and inner hair cells. The outer hair cells will act as an amplifier to amplify the very, very soft sounds that will enter Eddie Kramer's ear. Then, in conjunction with the inner hair cells, the sound will be transmitted to the auditory cortex, to Eddie Kramer's brain, and that's how he hears sound.
I mean, song and sound is totally bizarre. I mean, like, there are vibrations in the air that we're like hearing. You can't see it. I mean, I guess you can if you have some kind of special instruments or something, but just that it's vibrations, like that's what sound is. So everyone's vibing at the same time, you know. I always like it when I feel like I don't know what's gonna come out of my mouth as far as like a note will happen. You know, sometimes I see notes in my head when I'm gonna sing them and I'm like, should I do that note or should I not do that note? That's kind of stuff. But sometimes if I'm really into it, like I just don't even know. I feel like my voice is doing something that's not cerebral. It's like coming from someplace else. And that's very emotional for me. And it's a really, look, I'm about to cry. No, but it's a really good release. I So yeah, I like that part of singing.
If you go around talking to various people and ask them to talk about music in various kinds of genres and worlds, most of them would take for granted that it means something, that there's got to be something meaningful about it. It's really only in the world of classical music ideology that you do get some people who argue there is no way to talk about musical meaning, that music, in a sense, means only itself in a completely tautological relationship. There are famous statements. Igor Stravinsky, who probably was kind of BSing on this, but did say he believed that music could not express anything at all, not a state of mind, not anything in the outside world, nothing, that it was just pure form. And thus to interpret it, to say that there's some meaning, it connects to anything outside of itself, is, amazingly enough, and this is one of the things in which I no longer believe, kind of a controversial position in traditional academic study of music. To me, what's really sort of unique about music, it is both a powerful biological need that we have. It does seem to physically hook into our bodies in a way that other types of arts don't. And yet it is also a highly ramified sign system that has its own abstractions and has a whole complicated way of creating structures in what you call the noosphere, the sphere of the intellect. And the fact that it does both of those things at once is, to my mind, what keeps it constantly interesting.
A good description of what music is that I've heard is that it's sound being organized by human thought or by human intelligence. The idea that as much as we might hear things that seem musical to us in traffic noise or in the sound of birds singing, it's not actually music until it's organized by human intelligence.
Music, as has often been said, is the art that goes most directly right into our head. Our eyes don't have to assemble letters into words and words into meaning. You don't have to organize brush strokes into form and movement. It goes right into our brain, even if we're not aware that we're listening to it. It's only in the background. So in that way, it's the most direct art form. And it's around us every day. If you listen closely, you can hear music everywhere, of course, especially in New York.
So not everybody has to like the same kind of music. So if people don't like your music, that is fine. Basically, in busking, you come out to sing your heart out and participate your joy in music with whoever wants to listen. I mean, even if I get to be a world-famous musician, a millionaire, I would always still want to play in the subway because it's the funnest thing in the world to me.
I ultimately feel like a student. Not that it's like the music is some great school or college to excel in, but I feel like a student in the sense that I feel like there's so much out there that I've never heard and so much I have to learn. Both sort of kinds of music from different parts of the world, but also how different people create music. And so I just feel like I spend a lot of time doing that. So in the sense of, discovery and what I'm looking for, oftentimes it's dictated by something that I hear. That'll be the first note of something or also something that someone may recommend. it'll throw me down another path of obsession. Because ultimately, it is an obsession. I think, you know, it has been a total obsession of mine. It's why I started a record label. It's why I go see shows. It's why I sit for hours on the internet, like finding everything I can about a certain artist, and you know, spend a lot of time with music.
I understand how it feels to be a fan. I remember being 14 and flipping out over records, and it's something you don't want to lose, I think. If you could take that and carry it with you forever, I think you'd be a much happier person. Just flipping out all the time.
For me, like, more than anything, music is really physical. I like the physicality of music. I like the chords. I like looking at the shapes of the chords. I like the fingers. I like watching hands on a thing. It's about the sound, but to me, it's more about looking at it. I love watching people play music, seeing when they hit certain pedals, what microphone they're using. It's really fun. I mean, it's nothing new. I mean, a lot of people obviously love that, but that's like the more exciting. I really like that's really nice to me.
For me, it's very visual a lot of times, music. So I'll get a whole like storyline, scene. I feel like I'm moving somewhere, you know, when I listen to music. It's like really physical and visual.
I think when music affects you the deepest is the same effect that you get from abstract painting or a poem that you don't really understand exactly what it means, but you get this feeling about what it means. So you're reacting to it on an emotional level rather than like intellectual level. And if you do that, then you really get something out of it. Then it's the deepest reaction.
Feeling like something's coming into you, moving through you, like not just vibration, not just color, but a feeling that comes completely through your whole body and moves you and creates emotion. Like a huge wind, but a wind that could touch inside your soul, inside the pit of your stomach, inside the core of who you are, and affect you in that way.
I was home from school, and a tornado came and touched down on our street, and it tore the roof off the house. And I was playing the piano, and when the tornado came down, the sky turned black and the whole house started shaking. It felt like it could have just lifted up or the doors fallen off. And I mean, really, the sky turned black and it got really quiet. And it was such a powerful silence. I just kept playing the piano. I wanted to hear that music inside of that silence. I feel like that's the first moment that I ever felt fully drawn into the power of musical energy.
I know, they say some people who have never heard music, they picture it, they picture color, or they try to imagine, or they feel through, like the deaf people will feel. They love music, they love going to see music because of the vibration. They know it's there, they can't hear it, but they get it.
So when you feel it, boo 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 boo, that's what I hear. Boo 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 boo. We feel we hear by vibration. The sound, that's why we have speakers right here behind us. Vibration comes right through my body, right here. I can feel it. And so if you're off key, you'll vibrate. You can feel the vibration. It's all kind of blur, not blending. So if you have same key, it's really tight. You can hear the perfect rhythm, perfect sound, a clean sound, clean feel. Off key is fuzzy. You can feel it. It doesn't feel right. So I played that to the audience, and the audience said, "How can you possibly play here? You're deaf." I said, "Well, I should play it and let it flow." And they said, "It's good." I said, "Thank you. But can you hear?" "Not really. I should feel the vibration. I understand the low, I understand high, I think the low, high, and then you figure it out and you play it." And with the high pitch, it's like having some kind of an orgasm, that kind of feeling, feeling good about it. And the low pitch, pretty easy. It's more of a movement. It's low pitch guitar or bass or drums. Everybody moves. Everyone has a rhythm in their body. Regardless slow or quick. I believe very, very strongly that individuals do have music in their soul. Oh, yeah. Sometimes they keep it. Sometimes they share. Yeah. Sometimes they're not sure when they share. But one day you express it. Oh, my God, you play so well. Where did the music come from? Yeah. In the soul. Yeah, exactly. The heartbeat, I run a lot. I do a lot of physical workout, especially bicycling. I can feel my heart beating. It's like music to me. When I ride my bike, I can feel the heartbeat, and I just create music, like Beethoven or someone. It's amazing that I think it all started from the heart. Music started right from the heart. Yeah.
It's a conversation. Yeah. It's a conversation. And that's how I look at music, The instruments talk to each other. If you can go back to the cartoons, the musical cartoons, all of a sudden the snake is talking to the grass, and the grass says something to the bugs, and then the rabbits just join in, and you got the owls in the trees, and then here come the big elephants, and everybody is talking. And in Boogie Wonderland, there's an instrumental section. And the strings take the first conversation, And then the French ones come in and no, we dispute that. Pop, 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 and then the saxophone says, "Shut up." The trombone says, "You guys ain't saying nothing. Watch this. Shut up, pop, pop." You know what I'm saying? And the timpanist says, "Okay." Doom, 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 boom, boom. Everybody had a piece.
visualizations and the visual presentation is, most scientists and sociologists agree that it is 90% of the medium.
You're the one who's made for me, and I was made for you. Every word I say is true.
When you go to see a show and you can't distinguish between the band and the crew, then there's a problem. You know, is this guy the guitar tech? No, that's the band. And it didn't used to be that way. Bands would take pride in their presentation. In the 60s, you know, the Motown bands, the British invasion bands, they'd have these matching outfits, they'd have these dance moves. Oh, and they'd also have the best songs ever written in popular music. So why have we taken steps backward as a rock and roll community? Well, it's up to each individual act to say, I have the weight of the entire musical past, present, and future on my shoulders as a musician, as a professional. It is up to me as a songwriter and an artist, me personally, because I cannot rely on anyone else to take it as far as it can possibly go, and then hopefully for the next generation to take it even further and blow whatever I'm doing off the stage too. Please do.
I would say music is, when you boil it down, it's Camptown Races.
You can boil music down to basically 4 songs: Camptown Races, Frusciante, what's the farmer song? The farmer in the bell, the farmer in the bell, and Rock Around the Clock. Those music is based on those 4 melodies alone. You could actually extrapolate any modern day song and go back to those 4 songs.
Right. Look at like stuff on Bitches Brew or something.
Yeah.
Like Miles Davis stuff would be very much like, you know, transpose it, but I'll keep it in C.
It's fusion jazz. It's a fusion.
If you know this song, you know this from Bitches Brew.
Miles
Very
Davis
similar.
kind of transposes that melody.
If he was,
he's like,
if I'm
freak
Davis,
out.
right? If I'm Davis, I'm doing something like this. I'm like, he would improvise up here for a little bit. He'd be up here on the trumpet, kind of doing.
You gotta imagine the sunglasses and the smoke-filled room, and you gotta get heroin, and you know.
But then he'd find his way back here. It's a little different from, it's not the exact melody, but you can tell.
If you listen to songs, if you really truly listen to the music and how the chord progressions go, you'll find Farmer in the Dell in probably 99% of contemporary music.
Good example is someone like Carlos Santana on his early 70s albums. I don't recall which one, but he did this great little flamingo kind of up here. He's just
like a
hanging,
Hispanic electric guitar.
He's hanging up here for a while, and he's kind of noodling around. He finds his way back here. But when it comes to actually establishing a melody point, here he is. And listen.
And you gotta really, you gotta really listen past the congas and and that electric guitar, that shiny electric guitar, but you will hear that melody.
Right. So like something like Elton John, he's doing his Yellow Brick Road stuff, which is very much kind of these chordal
Piano, like Baby Grand.
Yeah, beautiful stuff, kind of. And then you'll see him ever so slightly, all of a sudden.
It pops right back up every time. And that's how you know you have a musician that has studied the basics of music, that has a real, ingrained knowledge of the rhythm and the way that music flows. If you hear that Dell, you got to win it.
Right.
Well, cars and music. I mean, like I listen to different music in the car than I do at home. Like the car is like that's just classic rock radio. Like you need like.
Since I was 14, the idea of music and rebellion has appealed to me just like it's appealed to kids across the globe. So even though I'm not a kid anymore, I still get to piss a few people off by turning that music up loud, It's always the vision of the arm out the window, cruising and pumping sounds. And, I think if you wanted to get all Freudian on it, I think it's about, it's like a mating ritual. It's a preening thing. You drive, I mean, people drive all the way up here to cruise Sunset in their cars and pump their music. And there's only one reason to do that, and that's to try and get laid. I remember vividly, and darling, this is before I got married, but I remember being in Camden in London and absolutely pumping Adam and the Ants' first album whilst I was getting laid in the back seat. Awesome, absolutely awesome.
You know, I'm in my 30s, so I don't put on a tune for lovemaking. That's kind of when you... I'm not knocking anybody who does, but I certainly did when I was 15, and I was gonna have like a 3-hour makeout session. By the way, it was People Are People, Depeche Mode cassette tape, front and back.
I got a crush on Weird Al Yankovic when we were filming his movie, UHF, and I was married, and he invited me to a movie, but I was in a really unhappy, bad marriage, and I wanted to go to the movie with Al, but I thought, I wonder if that would be a sin or not, because I had a crush on him, and I thought, well, it probably wouldn't be a sin to watch a movie with him, but if we held hands, that would probably be a sin. So, you know, I was thinking about that. Talk about love, talk about morality. Are we having an affair, or are you just glad to see me? When I was thinking of the adultery song, I was thinking of... Talk about love. I was feeling sexual. To me, that felt sexual, that beat.
You're listening to that song and you're driving in your car, you're sitting in your house, and all of a sudden your chest explodes open and you're singing the words, and like you get it and something like makes sense, and all of a sudden you look out at your yard or you look out the window and you're different. You're changed and you're looking at things in a totally different way, and things are now better, and you fix something and you've transcended into some other area that artist was able to bring you into. I just think that's what music's about, you know. It's almost like a shaman. It's almost like a guide. It's a guide through life.
And I was like, God, is anything like, isn't there a sign to tell me something's gonna be okay? And I'm driving and I see a sign that says sign, and I'm like, that's really funny. And then right on the radio goes on, ooh, things are gonna get easier. I don't know the words again, but you know that song that goes something like that. And I was like, yeah, things are gonna get better. Things are gonna get easier. You're totally right, radio. And things did. Maybe music could foretell the future. I don't know. I'm just kidding.
When I was a child, one of my first experiences with music was my dad trying to win my mom back. He had written her this song, and that was kind of one of the first times I realized the power of music, like what, you know, effect it could have on people. And I was seeing my mom kind of, she was a little pissed, but she was also, you could tell, kind of into it, because he wrote her this beautiful love song. And he always kind of charmed women that way, so.
What's so great about music, it's sort of like you recycle an energy, so you as the audience are giving something and then it gives back to you. And if you synergize, if you find a music that perfectly synergizes with whatever emotion you're feeling, it sort of like can release it.
Brain music therapy is a type of treatment where we record people's EEGs and we convert them to musical sounds. What we do is we filter out the relaxing brain waves and the activating brain waves of Craig, and we will upshift it to an auditory frequency so he can hear how his brain uniquely relaxes, because everybody has their own EEG signature and everybody has their own unique way of relaxing, and therefore everybody makes their own unique type of brain music. And research has shown that when people listen to their own brain music and their own unique way of relaxing, they tend to be able to sleep better. I mean, the beginning is just getting people off medication. That's what we're doing right now. We're helping people titrate down or get completely off medication through changing their brain and help it regulate, help calm it down, and when you're calm, creativity comes up, transformational stages come up, thinking is clearer, and there's all kinds of shifts that can happen when your brain is operating properly, which it can't do when you're stressed and anxious. And specific types of music will activate the brain in specific directions. So for instance, relaxing music, we call it relaxing music because the impact it has is it cools down the brain, it soothes the brain. Certain kinds of music, 60 beats per minute, 1 a second, tends to enhance visual, spatial cognitive skills. So you can learn foreign languages easier if you're listening to music about that pace. Whereas if you're depressed and you need more activation in certain regions, if you listen to fast and loud music, you get a temporary antidepressant effect. So it has an amazing impact on the brain.
I've been constantly wondering what music is about and how it comes out. I think one of the ideas that I like, because it's almost poetic, is that it's sort of an attempt to mirror or recreate thought patterns or deeper thought patterns from the subconscious. Sort of recreate, sort of making, like dreaming in sound waves in a way. So it doesn't mean when you make a really angry song, it doesn't really mean that you're angry and want to kill the human race yourself necessarily, but to have dreams of weird things and violence and all that is only natural because it is part of human nature, I guess.
What do we do? How do we approach the idea of making our lives happy? Having happiness ever again in our lives, faced with something as horrible as your children dying. And how does someone say life is still worth living? And so we have music and we have things that we can sing that get us through some thin invisible membrane that says my life isn't worth living. And sometimes I think music can play, or you can sing a song and suddenly this membrane has dissolved away and let you go to some other dimension in your own mind. And not that music utterly changes the world, but I think it can change your world just enough that you could say that life is good and life is worth living.
The hard stuff is the reason I started writing songs. I struggled with depression for a really long time and with addiction, and when I figured out that I could feel a lot better if I stopped sort of bottling up all these things that were getting to me, and that I was feeling that I could just exist in a more healthy place if I let everything out, just let all these troubling things pass through and just said them and connected with other people who were having similar experiences. And but yeah, also just sort of recognizing that that all emotions coexist at all times, and just letting them all intertwine with each other and coexist with each other. And I guess that sort of naturally became a part of the songs, rather than trying to be like, this is a love song. It is all about when I feel just pure love, and this is, a completely tragic, sad, heartbroken song because I only ever feel that one feeling at any given time, For me, it all fits together.
We now recognize that broken heart isn't just a poetic phrase. There is something that we have come to know now as the broken heart syndrome, in which patients, mostly women, experience a huge surge of emotion and afterwards can be left with a devastating paralysis of the heart, sufficient to mimic a heart attack and be life-threatening. We do know, however, that if we can support the patients through that with intensive care, they'll recover completely. So it's a fascinating, relatively new observation.
It's a healing agent. I mean, it's like drugs. It's like all the other gratification things. It's probably one of the better. You don't need too much residue and shit. You got to go to rehab and shit. But music, I mean, every nationality have their own folk grooves and rhythms and things. And it's very natural that people would, get into all the way to the point of ecstasy and esoteric. You know what I mean? And it will like destroy it, and it could also help, like medicine. It can definitely, there's tones in music that's work through everything you need. Probably got some good medicine in there.
I really truly believe that music has the power to heal human beings. And so I take my working with music in a very reverential way. I mean, I really respect music in the most deep way I can possibly respect things. So whenever I'm working with it, I'm always thinking, and it can be heavy metal as well. I'm thinking of like some 13-year-old kid who's got horrible parents, with a twisted mind, who's like actually getting nurturing from these recordings. I think about that kind of thing, and I try to put that vibe into the work that I do, and hopefully, because I do believe that if I approach something with a certain vibe, that sometimes it can make it through all the pressing of the CD and God knows what, and into his head, and could come across a little bit that way.
And one day I remember I was sitting at an outdoor eatery, and I remember hearing Backstreet Boys come on the speaker and thinking at the time, I had a little bit of a kind of a judgmental feeling about it, maybe said something negative. And then I looked over and I saw this couple fighting, and their daughter was sitting there at the table with them. And she kind of closed herself off and was listening to the Backstreet Boys on the speaker while the mother and father were fighting. And here was this young 14-year-old girl that was doing the exact same thing I did when I was a kid, to a different kind of music. So at that point in my life, I changed my feeling about that altogether. I thought, music in all genres has something for everybody. That girl could grow up later and decide she likes rock and roll, or she likes Stravinsky, or, whatever she gets into. But at that point in her life, it really saved her from having to deal with that battle that was going on between her parents. So...
We start with a brand, and then from that brand, we create the band.
And we've worked together 15 years. We started back in the day, in the early 90s, with the Backstreet Boys.
It's the first group that we put together, and we're launching a new artist, Kelly Crosley, who we're in the studio today working on her first record.
Mm-hmm.
So we're excited about that. Sybil and I both have been very in tune with what's going on in pop culture, and it's something that I can't really explain.
You can't explain. I think you have a knack, or you don't.
Flip, reverse, now make this kitty purr.
You start with a vision for what we feel is needed in the marketplace a year to a year and a half down the line. I mean, we don't try to recreate anything musically. It's a current sound. Then you have to sort of cultivate that and turn it into something that is viable and palatable to the world, and you package it in a way so that it's received, you hope, in a way that a lot of people love it.
You only have really 5 years with a pop band, and it's over.
In the pop genre that we work in, your audience tends to grow up, and then it becomes not as fashionable to like a certain artist like that. But it's good for us, because I mean the reality is, our fans that like the music that we create, they're always being born. I mean, the teen and tween marketplace, it's a phenomenal space, because at that age, for whatever reason, they not only want the music, if they're into the brand, they want the music, they want the bed sheets, they want the pencils. We can make that coffee cup over there with the name of the band that we're promoting at the time. And if the kids are hooked into it, they want that as well. So,
It's exciting.
Yeah, you take the temperature of pop culture, and then, hopefully your gut feeling's right. So far, we've done all right. So great. Let's do the triple.
I'll sing you a tune. You want me to sing you something from a funeral song from, I don't even know where it's from actually, but it's from some Aboriginal group, and the funeral song goes, Now, we may not want to call that music, but it was their music, and that's a funeral song. So, all kinds of pitch, time, amplitude things got developed by little groups of people, which eventually became their music. That was their music. And we have our music. So they're all different. As different as language is different from one culture to another. But every group of people have predicate, noun, object. They have the basic grammar in every single language, the very same basic grammar, but the languages are all different.
Closer to our heart, rhythm. Right? That's something that's everywhere. So that's a universal. Exactly how we use rhythm is different from culture to culture, but the idea of taking sound, connecting it to movements, doing something together, syncing up with two people, that's universal. And so that certainly reflects something about the way our brain is wired up. Our brain is listening to the sound and extracting some kind of time and regular pulse from the sound, music. So we're trying to understand where that happens in the brain, how that comes to be, how we're able to create a sense of beat, and then why and how that's connected to our movements so tightly. Why we dance, for example. So we're looking at auditory cortex, which is the first destination for information about sound into the cortex. The auditory regions of the brain are actually located, looking at my head, on the side in what's called temporal cortex. And that would show up here in these sensors. We actually see a modulation of how the brain responds to sound depending on how you hear a beat in music. So where you hear the beat in music actually affects perhaps how you hear things. So the traditional view has always been a kind of stimulus response view, that we take in information about the world through our senses, we make some picture decision making, and then we actually act on that. Really, the better way to think of the brain, rather than this linear progression from stimulus to response, is just, an enormous series of loops. Higher brain regions reach down into primary auditory cortex and modify how things actually sound to us. So when you're listening to music, hearing the beat, depending on where you hear the beat, the music can change completely. That difference is not happening out in the world, that's happening entirely in our brain. Sure, the auditory system connects to the motor system. This is what lets us listen to sound and dance along. But what about the idea, could the motor system be connecting back into the auditory system? And there certainly is evidence for this that's growing. So our idea is that perhaps it's the motor system that's going back and influencing how we hear the sound. In a sense, how we move can affect how we hear. But as far as, why we love it so much, this is one of the great mysteries of the mind. Why is music and sound connected so deeply to emotion centers? And that's something, while we can trace some of those pathways, the big question of why we've evolved that way is still really unknown.
I mean, that's rhythm right there. It all comes from the heart. Rhythm is, that's, you talk about internal clocks. I mean, that is your internal clock. Like your
your internal metronome is your heartbeat. You know, you want it to race, and then it starts turning into a thrash metal thing. But rhythm is everywhere around us. Everything is rhythm. I mean, you can hear this tiny little whirring going on in this room that I'm in, and you could turn that into a rhythm. Everything is rhythm, and you know, the heartbeat is the basis of, you know, all forms of life. So, you know, a hummingbird heart, that's, you know, that's speed metal right there. You know, a whale's heartbeat is going to be some lugubrious, you know, largo type beat where, you know, whale music is some pretty amazing music. Does that come from their heart? Possibly. There's definitely a correlation between the heartbeat and, you know, how humans perceive music.
Our experience in utero of our own heartbeats and those of our mothers must form our sense of what's right in the world, what's reassuring in the world. And it must really be because we're conditioned from the moment that we actually are conscious of the regularity of our own rhythms and those of our mothers.
In the Western classical tradition, and this actually sets it apart in sort of not a great way from other traditions, there has actually been a lot of suspicion and anxiety about the physical response to music. Some of the same people who were arguing very strenuously that music was pure form, so that what it was about was its own form, were also very, very, very anxious about the idea that music physically moved people. And there is an infamous discussion in a 19th century book called On the Beautiful in Music, where the author says, well, look, okay, I know there are some people who sort of use music to stimulate their fantasy and who, you know, have powerful responses to it. For these people, I would say there's a new invention you ought to check out called chloroform. So he actually called that kind of listening pathological. So there's a strong fear that music which alters your consciousness, which makes you feel differently than you did, and doesn't, and a way of relating to music which doesn't keep the intellect front and center, is like drugs, is pathological, and is stigmatized. And I do think that is really unusual, that when as a musicologist you look out into the world of other music, you realize that, well, everybody else's music appears to do this, and they really like it. And so, you know, you look at gospel music, you look at trance-inducing music from various aboriginal cultures, you look at Sufi music, you look at music all across the world, it's basically considered to be not worth anything unless it actually carries you away into some kind of altered state. But it's in our classical music that, in fact, a whole way of understanding how music works that doesn't involve the body has been worked out. If music is pure abstract form, then you can just hold it in your mind as a kind of ideal construct, like a mathematical equation or a chemical molecule. You can hold it and turn it and look around, and in a disinterested way, sort of comprehend it. So that is something that we have to get past, I think, if we're going to understand not only contemporary music or popular music, but even the music that supposedly is at the heart of the canon.
I think any music of any worth has been done by people who are very interested in the internal process of their soul and their mind that's taking place while they're writing music, their emotions. They've always been people who have been concerned with the process of what they do and haven't been very concerned with what the outer result of what they're going to do is when it leaves their sphere. And I believe the more that even a great musician becomes concerned with what it is when it leaves their immediate sphere, the less contact you have with what's going on inside you, because you start to equate the music with the reaction it provokes as opposed to what it naturally is, which is just something that takes place inside you that you have been given the gift of being able to realize and to bring into manifestation.
It's the conceptual mind, the mind that puts a separation on us and the environment we live in. This is, and I only know this through my Buddhist study. I study with an incredible teacher now who's constantly saying this. The discriminating consciousness separates us from what's around us. That's its job. But that's not reality. Reality is we're all connected all the time, constantly. There's no disconnection. Nobody lives in a void. And that's what happens when you're creating, when you're making music. Or I think any other kind of art, maybe. I don't know. I've never done any other kind of art. But I know with music, it drops away. The idea of that you're separate from anything drops away, and then you're just completely connected to everything.
To the 16 guardians and to all protectors of the Dharma and their relations to all space and time.
I think that's what a lot of artists feel when they're creating, when it's just coming out, where you go into the music, and of course you have all your processes set up ready to sort of engage, the intellect, the physical part of it, everything. And then once you immerse yourself into it, you go into it on the best moments, you wake up and go, wow, where was I? I disappeared, I wasn't there. And then you know that just the only thing that was happening there was pure music, pure creation. It wasn't your intellect involved, you weren't engineering anything. That doesn't mean your brain shuts down. Your brain is always working, but it's not controlling what's happening. The music is just coming out, and that's the purest place for me in music, where you just disappear and you're not there. Your personality, your ego, all that is gone.
The notion of creativity is probably a relatively late notion in the development of the human being. I would guess that what we call creativity or being different or unique, probably you got cast out of the society or made a shaman. Maybe the shaman were the then there's only room for one of those, so the rest of them got thrown away. And today we're not very much different. If you can't sing it exactly as I sang it, you're not musical. We don't say, oh, you're so creative, you can do it your own way. You've got a unique way to sing Happy Birthday. We don't say that. We say, well, you might as well forget about it. You can't sing Happy Birthday. So what we're getting is an absolute conformity. We're encouraging conformity. We're repressing creativity and uniqueness right from the very beginning, from the get-go.
A child has this relationship to the creative force, Yeah, your parents gradually, stifle that your connection to that creative force and gradually shove your face in the concrete, and so do your teachers and school system, and everything's working against you, but the force of creativity, nature is not working against you. It's right there for you at any time. You just have to be ready to not judge yourself and to be open to whatever is going to come through you, and to be ready to not judge it as it comes through, but be all right with it, whatever it is, because it's just the universe expressing itself.
This is like, now you're cooling out, you're relaxed, you're feeling good. And then something you observe or you hear that excites you. Well, you know what? Your body, right now, inside, it could be any place, but I'm going to say inside your heart, within the brain-heart complex or interface, you have a memory of your heartbeat from generations and generations and generations ago. That's your genetics. The blueprint for those kind of tempo changes is in you. It's in you. So I'm saying the basic for every rhythm comes out of bum, boom, bum, boom. That old simple heartbeat. As I was growing up playing drums, people used to always ask the question about what's the origin of the drum, where did the drums come from? And it seemed like the heart was always mentioned there, that the heart and the drum was not two separate things. And anybody who visited my house, they couldn't get out unless I recorded their heartbeat, their heart sounds. So I was recording all these heart sounds. I still have all these old reel-to-reels around here.
peak of 114.1776.
This is your max peak right here.
Milliseconds is within the field of
When I listen to a heart sound, to me, if you're going to be a cardiologist, I would say, study music. Every medical school that's going to do you should study music, man. If you're going to listen to a heart sound, you should know music. Why music? Not intellectual music, if I were to sit down and compose. I'm saying as a functioning musician, when you travel throughout the world and you play for all kind of people, man, all cultures, man, especially people don't speak your language, man. It's about the sound spectrum now. You go in the area and speak doing the sound spectrum. Then you get to know. You begin to know, what rhythms work and what sounds work. So that's how I personally interpret this stuff from my experience as a musician. So when I hear heart sound or rhythm, I can say, I don't know. I don't think that one's working, or I think this one is working. You just don't sit down and go up and say, oh, well, this is not working because the mathematics is not right. It's not going to do that. That's not what this is about. It's not really what it's about. It's not a one-way situation here. You just don't go and study a science, or medical discipline, but not studying the total. And in the past, it was always a connection between music and medicine. In the simplest raw terms, I said, you got to have some ability to receive or perceive what we call feelings, man. Whether you want to call it pranayama, you want to call it soul, you want to call it chi, you want to call it ki, and you want to call it spirit. We're inside. Our body's hungry for that, man. It's saying, give me something that's more natural. Give me something so I can feel. Not today, man, with all these machines, man, that's going to do a number. I mean, machines is great, but you got to get some soul first. Get some soul, then mess with the machine. Don't mess with a machine, then think you're going to get some soul. That's not too easy, man. Get your soul, get your internal self together, then mess with a machine and see how a machine will take us to a really, 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 really another level. If you just breathe out, then relax your body, move your body, you'll make some unbelievable sounds. If somebody steps on your toe, ouch! You burn your finger, You don't say, oh, I burned my finger. You make a sound, man. That's a breath, man. Well, music is basically, you talk about music. People go and they extract from the total sound that's on the planet that we can even conceive of. Every bit of sound you can hear. I don't care if it's from the movement of leaves, if it's some people in the bush, or some people that's coming out of the big music conservatories, if it's a cat, if it's a dog, if it's an elephant, or whatever else. Everybody makes a sound. That's a big sound spectrum. Then you got all this so-called cosmic sound. That's either the frequencies are so low or so high, we're not attuned to. So music is just an extraction from something that's much greater than what it's about. It's a name to define how people organize what we call motion, movement, whether you're counting that motion or movement or whether you hear that motion or movement. They're all coming from different ways to do the same thing, to cause the body to oscillate. Motion, a life. And when that stops, buddy, forget about it.
3746 milliseconds is within the field of 1/4 fractional motion.
A fallen...
Voyager was created with this sort of early 70s technology, just little past transistors, and yet it had exceeded its design specifications beyond the wildest dreams of the engineers. It had given us our first close-up look at 100 new worlds. I mean, this is on the level of Magellan and Columbus, and it was in a way, I think, one of the greatest achievements in human history because it managed to suddenly blend with our deepest feelings, with our music, with our emotions. All of it was on Voyager. That golden record has Japanese gamelan music, Japanese shakuhachi, Peruvian panpipes, Senegalese percussion, Bulgarian shepherdess Volya Balkanska, who is singing a song that was meant to be sung on top of a mountain. A woman standing on a mountaintop, singing to someone on another mountaintop. What could be more similar to Voyager's mission than that? And all of these people thinking that they're living in extremely different cultures, making music in very different ways. And yet, in reality, it was Voyager that, out beyond the orbit of Pluto, looked back once to this planet on Valentine's Day in the early 1990s and took a picture of our planet, not in the Apollo frame-filling way that we like to think of it, which is a beautiful picture and a great leap forward for the human species. But no, something a little more realistic in terms of our actual circumstances on this planet. One, as Carl called it, one pale blue dot. And to see that one pixel Earth suspended for a moment, just accidentally, in a little bit of sunlight, a beam of sunlight, and to realize that all the people who are making that music, who ever made any music on that world, they live there on that tiny dot.
And all the science I don't understand, it's just my job 5 days a week. A rocket man, a rocket man. I think it's gonna be a long, long time. Touchdown brings me round again to find I'm not the man that think I am at all. It's gonna be a long, long time. No touchdown brings me round again to find I'm not the man they think I am at home. No, I'm a rocket man, a rocket man, burning out his fuse up there alone. It's gonna be a long, long
Music is the sound of the order and the chaos of the universe.
Music is like an energetic code.
And it is, in a sense, kind of a piece of magic.
Music is a way of giving what you're feeling inside to the other person.
Constantly making music. It doesn't stop from the moment you're born till your last breath. You're constantly making music from inside.
thanks again, John, for joining us and participating in our film. We were talking earlier in the house about kind of the nature of creativity and your will to imagine and create and stuff. And just kind of curious to maybe talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think I think the force that created us is expressing itself through our existence. I don't believe that a musical idea starts in your brain. I believe it starts at a place before that we don't have any direct contact with, and I believe that everything that we do, everything that we create is nature expressing itself the same way that when a flower grows out of the ground or a tree grows out of the ground, it's nature expressing itself. And you might say that the tree is expressing itself by the way its branches move out, but it's the force that drives nature. The tree is the visible thing that appears to our senses, but I don't at all believe it's the source of why everything is perpetuated all the time, you know. And music it's an ineffable thing that I don't think words can really do any good to really give us any true understanding of. We are able to make contact with that current, or that the creative force of the universe, or the source, or God, or whatever you want to call it. We're able to sort of connect with the intelligence of this by learning a musical language, learning a musical instrument, learning how to identify a sound and a feeling, and to be able to learn how to gradually express that feeling through an instrument. And so I feel like it's not just like the idea of somebody considering themselves responsible for a piece of music is ridiculous. We're only acting into the laws of nature that have given us the possibilities that we're exploring with the intelligence that we've been given. You know, you have something like the frequency spectrum from low to high. That's what we're working with. That's here whether we're here or not. It exists as part of the structure of physical reality, and our brains are learning to interact with it through learning an instrument, you know, or through using our voice in a certain way. But the possibilities are presented in this kind of invisible, silent way. They're just there, you know. Sound, the laws of acoustics are what they are. The frequency spectrum is what it is. The 12 note to the octave scale was just something waiting to be discovered, but which was already a mathematical possibility before what's his name? Can't remember his name. Pythagoras thought of it, and so you know, I just believe these things. You know, Bob Moog said it in that documentary of you guys. It's not so much that he was inventing something as much as it was there waiting to be invented, and it was just up to somebody to discover it, you know. And it's that way with any piece of music. I think it's been the big lie that's been perpetuated ever since the star-making machine of Hollywood started. The star-making machine of Hollywood has perpetuated a lie that the image is the thing, and that the thing responsible for a great actor or a great musician, it's just been continued by the music business, is they get this idea into the public's head that it's the physical image of the person and the name of the person that is responsible for the creation of what they do, and that's not what creates it. What creates it is the imagination, and the thing that the thing that makes it possible for one person to be in the right place at the right time in their life to create the things that they create, it has to do with a really complex structure of the mind and the soul and the nervous system and everything. All these unknown things that are taking place in the subconscious, which can be just as much structured by terrible things as it can by good. You know, a person could be nothing but abused and put down their whole life, and for whatever reason, their will to live, their love for music, their feeling for music, and all the fucked up things that have happened to them, all combined to make perfection. You know, I mean, just for example, somebody like Jimi Hendrix having a really difficult life growing up, nevertheless, that was exactly what made him the person who was capable of doing the beautiful, perfect music that he did. Or some kind of disadvantage like Beethoven being deaf. You know, things that appear to be disadvantages somehow in the complex network of the universe's intelligence end up working towards making this perfection. I really don't believe that somebody would do it with some kind of a perfect life. And this is just all stuff, it can't be explained. Nobody understands how, you know, why it is that results in it. But it's not because Jimi Hendrix looked the way he looked. It's not because Jimi Hendrix danced the way he danced or because his name was fucking Jimi Hendrix. You know, it's like these things are just meaningless. Yet the way the business has used these media tools has perpetuated this idea that what's important is that he's the greatest guitarist ever, and he's Jimi Hendrix, and there's his picture, that's him. And it's like, you know, the only real picture of him is his music. You know, the only thing that we should be like putting up on a pedestal is the works of somebody's imagination, and the imagination itself should be catered to by the people whose responsibility it is to take music, you know, to take somebody's music from them to an audience. You know, it's the real star of the whole thing. I don't believe that the human being is the star, and I don't believe their name is the star. I think it's their imagination that's the star. And just because it's something you can't package, just because it's something you can't take a picture of, just because it's something you can't measure by it's #1 or it's sold this amount or this many people love it or this many people come to see it, there's no way to quantify the imagination, and there's no way to sell it directly. That's all it is. I think when I first started, I was really thinking of it as being me that was now expected after years of holing up in my bedroom practicing all the time. I thought it was me that it was now expected to be good on command, you know. I joined a band that was at the time my favorite band, and so it wasn't like the same kind of musical development that a person can have by just sort of following their intuition and following the course of their interests and their imagination and eventually stumbling upon something that they really feel like is what they're here to do. In my case, like, I joined a band and basically like was under a tremendous amount of pressure to be liked, to be good, you know, and I gradually realized that all those kind of concerns really disrupt creative thought and really stifle it, you know. So the more I got out of the way, the more I stopped believing that it was me that was doing it, but the more I started just allowing the force that was making me feel what I feel to be the thing that was carrying the whole thing and running the whole thing. I just found that music was there. It wasn't something that had to be forced. It wasn't something that I needed to put myself under any pressure to do. I just felt like it was just something that was happening, you know. And so I you know, unfortunately I was already so off balance from being putting myself under so much pressure for a couple of years that by the time I was doing that, didn't really understand why I was feeling what I was feeling. I probably couldn't articulate it as well back then as I can now. I ended up just having this real distinct feeling that that the image wasn't the thing, and that it wasn't the people that were responsible for doing this, and somehow that by being a part of the world that I was in at that time, I was disrupting the flow of creativity, and that it was going to gradually I was going to gradually sort of lose contact with it, was the feeling that I had. And so I ended up going really far in the other direction and just pretty much just spending all my time painting for 5 years, and with no thought whatsoever to what the products of my imagination would be worth to anybody else. And that was a really healthy thing for me to do at that time. So when I'm performing, it's a little weird. I like recording more than performing, because you really do, you just close your eyes and you're especially recording alone, you're alone with the force of music. There's no other distractions. There's no there's no possibility for your brain to go anywhere else. If you are a physical person standing in front of people, you're getting certain charges. Luckily, it's the energy transference between the performer and the audience and the performer that I really enjoy. I really do love seeing people's faces smiling. I love seeing, the light shining out of people's eyes and stuff. Like it's really what makes me love it.
Are you present in the moment?
But what I like doing on stage is just shutting my eyes. I've gradually stopped caring about entertaining the audience in any way, because I found that these things that a performer gets in the habit of thinking that they need to do in order to be entertaining, jumping around and stuff like that. So you start doing it because you feel it, but eventually you get, like any habit, you just start doing it. And I started gradually realizing that it just didn't matter, that the important transference is in what you're feeling inside to the audience, and they will respond with enthusiasm if what you're feeling is strong enough, and if what they're feeling is strong enough, it'll just notch you up to a little bit of a higher level. You might be able to play faster on stage than you could if you were in a room by yourself, or you might find yourself just putting an energy into it that's just a little more intense than what you would do in a studio. It's not necessarily better, but it's just human energy bouncing off one another the same way it does when people have sex or whatever. And so but most of all, it's been important for me to just really be thinking of the music, and be thinking about the force that's making those people feel what they feel, and the force that's making me feel what I'm feeling, and to not think of it as at all about, I don't think a performer should ever judge themselves as they're performing if they make a mistake, or if they didn't play such a good solo, or if they did a bad drum fill or something. Like, it's stupid stuff to think about, and it's stupid to be judging yourself as you're going by. It puts you after, which, once something's already happened, it's just like regretting the past. It's like there's no point in it. It's already happened. And the best thing, to do is to live in the moment, and to worry about the very next step, to worry about but think about the next step, So when I'm playing, I'm usually sort of lingering between being right in the moment or foreseeing things before they happen. A musician gradually is able to be at one point in a song, say like 2 measures before, but you can anticipate what the 4th measure of a cycle is going to be like, and you anticipate what it would feel like if you put a note, say on the 10th, 16th note of the bar or something. You don't even need to use the symbols or the numbers or anything in your head unless they're equivalent with the musical feeling. All you have to do is picture the musical feeling. I used to do this form of meditation where you would sort of you would try to imagine you would try to imagine the feeling of steel, or you would try to hold a shape in your mind, like a red circle, and hold it there and not let it change shape and not let it change size and just try to hold it in your mind. And as I was doing these things every day, or you try to imagine the smell of chocolate and hold the feeling of the smell in your mind, you know. You smell of chocolate, the taste of chocolate, and you try to hold these things in your mind, and I realize that I'm doing that all the time in music. I'll often imagine a rhythm that I can hit on the guitar, you know, and I'll imagine it, say, 4 measures ahead of time, and Flea will have been hearing the same thing and we'll hit it at the same time. You know, it's like something is offering us these things. It's not. They're if your brain is open to them, and if you've developed the right relationship to the laws of music and to your instrument, you'll just find them waiting there for you. You know, I really think it's this idea that, oh God, how could I ever be a guitarist? I'm never going to be, you know, Eric Clapton or something. It's like these kind of ideas that the person is this intimidating figure who's this great God it's really interrupting the fact that people are judging themselves by some kind of, as if there's some kind of criteria that has anything to do with these intimidating you know, these intimidating godlike figures. It's that's the thing that we're like reaching for, and if we're not giving, I just feel like a child has this relationship to the creative force, you know. Yeah, your parents gradually, you know, stifle that your connection to that creative force and gradually shove your face in the concrete, and so do your teachers and school system, and everything's working against you, but the force of creativity, nature, is not working against you. It's right there for you at any time. You just have to be ready to not judge yourself and to be open to whatever is going to come through you, and to be ready to not judge it as it comes through, but be all right with it, whatever it is, because it's just the universe expressing itself. It's not something. Nothing's expected of you. You know, you just have to be there for it. And sometimes to get yourself in a position to be there for it is something that takes years of selflessness, or years of just a love for music, just having for no reason at all. You just, for whatever reason, music produces the feelings in you that it does, and playing an instrument produces the feelings in you that it does, and you just follow the light. And sometimes, you know, I mean, I know my years of practicing guitar, they weren't really very emotional. You know, I spent a lot of time just practicing scales and learning Frank Zappa instrumentals and trying to learn the most complicated music I could. But it created the way my intelligence was able to relate to and connect with the nature of music and the feelings that music brings about in me, ended up making me able to just making me be able to form a musical thought in my head and be able to bring it out into physical reality through my instrument. I remember being a little kid hearing music in my head all the time. I would hear songs in my head. As a 7-year-old kid, I had no idea how to produce them and how to bring them out. I just would hear them, and it's only through the years of playing an instrument without any reason other than just because you love doing it that eventually you learn the chords, you learn the intervals, you learn all kinds of musical references by learning other people's music, and gradually what you hear in your head can come out. It's really, you know, there's nothing intimidating about the process other than maybe you've got to put some time into developing a relationship with an instrument or two, you know. I just don't think people should be so threatened with this idea of being great, because there's just the only people who have any right to say what's great or not are, you know, the main, like, people like Stravinsky or, you know, or Bartok or somebody like they had certain criteria by which they judged music, but they knew from the beginning that it was ineffable. You know, they weren't trying to describe it. They would describe their criteria based on you know, in a theoretical way, and just the same way jazz musicians would discuss it or something. The idea that music's begun to be judged by the feeling that a star generates in the minds of people, it's really confused the issue, you know. So I really believe that people should get back to, you know, seeing music for what it actually is, and not for these things, not for the people who play it or the various ways in which it's sold, you know. An interesting definition of music that I heard was that, or an interesting description of it is that it's sound. It's a coordinate point between sound and human intelligence. It's the meeting of those two things. Sound on its own isn't music, as much as you know, John Cage might have, you know, loved the sound of you know, traffic in New York, or as much as we might like the sound of birds singing. It's not music until it's organized by human thought, and the fact that sound even enters our ears and then turns from a waveform into a electrical current in our brain, and that transfers, and then that becomes a musical feeling, and then we have the, you know, the fact that music constantly is turning from one thing into another. It's just one of those things that's just happening, and we have no idea why. You know, it's like scientists can only explain what's happening, but they can't explain why it's happening, you know. Yeah, so a good description of what music is that I've heard is that it's sound being organized by human thought or by human intelligence. The idea that as much as we might hear things that seem musical to us in traffic noise or in the sound of birds singing, it's not actually music until it's organized by human intelligence. And the fact that sound a sound may start as a physical motion that's hitting a string that vibrates, and then that string turns into electricity that goes through a pickup and then goes through a chord and then comes out of a speaker, and it becomes a waveform, and then the way that the air molecules are being moved around makes an impression on a microphone that turns it again into electrical current, and then it can become a sound on a tape, and then it can be another waveform in the air and go into a person's ear and go from being air again to being electrical current again in the person's brain. This is just a process that it's something that we don't understand. We can describe it and we can control it, but we have no idea why it's happening. Scientists can explain what is happening, and we can understand what the laws are that make that we can understand what the laws are that are in effect when this is happening, but we don't understand why it's happening. We don't. It's pretty much like the process I just described. It's the equivalent of the idea of reincarnation, of one person becoming something else. It's really all that's ever happening. Nothing's ever dying. And anyways, I think even a musical, even a song, the fact that you only hear it at that single point of right now, yet it's a series of moments, but it never occurs any other time than right now. Each moment in a song is sort of dying and becoming something else as the whole thing's going along. It's basically just that idea of reincarnation, just moving through the course of a 4-minute song or whatever. one section turns into another section and then goes back into being another section and gradually builds and grows and you know, why all this is possible, why reality isn't like dreams where things just all of a sudden you're in one place and then for no apparent reason and by having nothing to do with your own will you're somewhere else. The fact that reality isn't like that also nobody can explain why it's that way, you know. It's and so to be satisfied with some sort of explanation of what's happening rather than why it's happening is just silly, and you're just people who are satisfied with those kind of explanations are just I just think that they're ignoring half of what's going on, because you know, half of it is that it's happening, half of it is that there's something that's making it happen. And I guess people, you know, sometimes things that we don't understand are scary. Death is scary because we don't understand it, and I guess we put a lot of things that we don't understand in that category because so many of us are so scared of death. But you know, it's this process that we're sort of living into, and these laws of nature that make all these, the perpetuation of reality, the fact that yesterday doesn't die, that it still remains as a thought, and what we put on the shelf the day before is still there the next day. The fact that kind of consistency is running through things, the fact that there is a permanency of matter is also something that we should just be happy that it's that way. It could be so many other ways, and you can see that from your dreams. It's like reality could be really hard to get your handle on at all, you know. And luckily we're given this gift of being able to practice something and grow familiar with the laws of music and the laws of nature, and gradually be able to create something in the same way that the sun has created us. That you know, that the sun is sort of teaching us that lesson in the fact that it's revolving, doing the same thing every day. It's telling us all that if you do the same thing every day, you can build and things will grow as a result of your doing that thing over and over. Everybody knows this. They're all getting jobs and stuff. They think they're just getting jobs because they want to make money, but it's because it's just the way nature works. Nature works in circles. Nature works in cycles, and if you ignore those cycles, if you just sit around and do nothing all the time, or if you don't follow the interests inside you that compel you to do things, your life will gradually just lose meaning till you're old, you know. Or if you do something that it's not your will to do, your life will also lose meaning till you're old. But the more you explore the fact that by consistently reading, or by consistently practicing an instrument, or by consistently studying the laws of science, you will gradually grow in a way that's inward, that can't always be measured, but will always create fulfillment inside you, and will always give you a fascination for where you are and what you are and why you're here. And I believe that by doing that, a person in old age it can be a privilege. You know, it can be a way of going more and more from worrying about the outer presentation of what you are, and being concerned with what you are on the outside, and you can gradually enrich what you are on the inside. And I think any music of any worth has been done by people who are very interested in the internal process of their soul and their mind that's taking place while they're writing music, their emotions. They've always been people who have been concerned with the process of what they do, and haven't been very concerned with what the outer result of what they're going to do is when it leaves their sphere. And I believe the more that even a great musician becomes concerned with what it is when it leaves their immediate sphere, the more the less contact you have with what's going on inside you, because you start to equate the music with the reaction it provokes, as opposed to what it naturally is, which is just something that takes place inside you that you have been given the gift of being able to realize and to bring into manifestation. And so I really, you know, I guess, you know, I've always felt strongly on just listening to what your imagination dictates. If your imagination, you know, I'm the kind of person, I'll shift from liking one kind of music to liking another kind of music, to where I'll go through a period of 3 years where I'm obsessed with one kind of music, and then 3 years later I can't even imagine why I was listening to it. I'm so much in a different place, because it was just where my imagination gradually led me. Gradually the idea of listening to one thing stopped being exciting, and gradually the idea of listening to another thing seemed more exciting. And it's because I'm judging music based on its quality, and obviously if a person was judging music based on how popular it was or something, you would tend to focus your interests around things that were popular, and you would tend to make sure that all your musical efforts were coordinated with the standards that the public sets of what's considered, you know, the best. And I believe that kind of thing can make the imagination of a person that should be changing from one thing into the other into having a fixed idea of what's great, you know. And the mind should naturally just shift from one thing to the other, because that's the nature of the mind, you know. It jumps from one thought to the other all the time. We have no control over that, but it can, you know, I'm not going to go into that, but you know, it's the nature of everything in reality to change from one thing into another, and our minds are doing it all the time, and there's no reason that a person shouldn't completely shift their interests from one musical form to another, or shift their idea of what the idea of a great guitarist is, or what the idea of what music should do is. It's all really natural, and you know, to let the ideas of what society tells you, this is a great guitarist, he's number one, nobody's better than him. It's just what that ends up doing is just putting a fixed idea about something that people should never have a fixed idea about. You might, you know, I'll go through phases where I'm studying completely, you know, guitar players who really weren't very well practiced, but that and didn't have a lot of technique or anything, but their ideas were so strong, and the emotion that they put into what they do was so strong, and they were so unique and original that they, for that period of time, seemed better than somebody like Jeff Beck or Jimi Hendrix, or people who I also consider to be, you know, the greatest. It's just like, but I can't see someone like Bernard Sumner from Joy Division as being any less than what Jimi Hendrix was. In my eyes, they're the same thing, and depending on my mood or depending on the time in my life, I'll see one as being extremely relevant to my life, and I'll see another one as having no relevance, and then it'll turn around the other way again. You know, I'm really happy that's the way that the brain works, and that's the nature of music, is that I don't really think I think only the individual can say for themselves what's good and what's worthwhile. You know, it's these ideas that are perpetuated, where that trick us into thinking that there's some sort of a criteria for these things is ridiculous. It's only what makes you feel what you feel, you know, and only you know that, you know. So sometimes you got to clear your head a little bit and get away from caring about what your friends think is cool or whatever, to really listening to your subconscious and listening to your own real feelings, and deciding for yourself, you know, what feels right to you, you know. I said I hated music that I didn't hate, I just hated the kids who I associated it with, you know. So when things like Depeche Mode and stuff came out, I didn't think I liked it, and Duran Duran and stuff like that, and I knew in the back of my head that I did like the sound of it, but at the time that it came out, there was no way that I was going to make any sort of that I was even going to admit to myself that I liked it because I was concerned about the outer appearance of what that would mean if I liked it or something, or creating some kind of a fixed identity of me as the guy who really, you know, into the music I was into, which obviously I was also really, I was much more into than I would have been then anyways, but you know, with whatever things like King Crimson and Genesis and Yes and stuff like that, that was where what I really related to the most, and what I felt like gave me identity. But gradually, when I did start to get into things like Depeche Mode and Duran Duran, I was like, you know, I remember liking this when I heard it. I just didn't admit it to myself. You know, would have been one thing to keep it secret from other people. That's its own issue. But to not even let myself know it. I remember recording a Depeche Mode song on the radio, and then when I realized it was them, I stopped recording it. And you know, and it was and you know, I loved the sound of it, and that should have been all I was going by. You know, I shouldn't have been concerned about, oh, these people like it who I don't like, or something like that. You know, it's like, it's a silly way to think, and I guess I have the reverse of it. Most people like things because other people like them, and I think either way you're doing yourself an injustice, because you like everything you like for a reason. If something sounds good to you, it sounds that way for a reason, and even if you don't understand something right away, sometimes if there's some little part of your brain that says there's something healthy here, or there's something interesting here, sometimes it's important also to do that. I did that, you know, with jazz and stuff. Like, it didn't, I guess I grew up around classical music, so I didn't have an ear for jazz the way some people do when they're young, but I knew that there was something there for me, and so I learned things on my guitar and gradually developed the receptors in my brain, the emotional receptors in my brain that relate to the types of feelings and sounds and chords and melodies that are in that kind of music, and you know, there's so much. There's been so many forces working against people to come up with a fixed idea of what they like that sometimes you kind of have to train yourself to figure out what you actually like, because it turns out I really love jazz and it really means a lot to me, but those doors hadn't been opened up in my head, or like I said, just those receptors hadn't needed to be woken up, you know, so I really just think it's important to pay attention to the nature of the way that the brain relates to music, and to listen to every little thing it dictates in terms of how you can get more from all the wealth of beautiful music that there is in the world. There's an incredible amount of great music. It's unbelievable that so much has resulted from us. I mean, there's as much as there is food growing out of the ground and plants growing out of the ground. It's, you know, it's there if you gravitate towards it and if you put the energy into it. I think it's really unwise to just, you know, buy whatever the thing is that's pushed down your throat next. You know, it's like it's important to look for things and to find things yourself. You'll find that something is guiding you towards the things that you need to be listening to. The more you do it, the more in touch with that force you'll be. You know, nature wants you to look at its beautiful fruits and eat its beautiful fruits and eat its vegetables and look at its trees and feel its wind. And nature wants you to listen to the music that it's resulted in. You know, no reason to think of the efforts of man as being separate from nature. It's all just one thing. It's nature. It's what exists, one thing. I get the impression, I talked to a psychic, and she said something about my cats liking they enjoy the noise that I make. And she also said something about them not having the same perception of time that we do. So it started to make me wonder, because music is so intrinsically connected to time. It is sound being structured through time. That their perception of it, they wouldn't hear the organization of it in the way that we do. It's funny how with a piece of music, you're just following your feelings, but you play something that is good in the form that you make it in. But if one note was off, if one note was in a slightly different place, it would sound totally wrong and sound like it didn't at all follow a coherent train of thought. it's real specific why one note sounds good following the next. And again, it's something you just gradually learn by following your intuition. It's not something that can be directly, or at least it's never been directly explained, or understood. But it has to do just with the setup of our brain. We perceive time in the way that we perceive it because of the setup of our brains and our sensory apparatus and our nervous system. It's not so much that time's definitively going at that rate. It's totally possible for another species to be experiencing everything at a completely different rate. Seems to me like flies must experience it at a drastically different rate. They're way too on top of it for having such small brains. So I figure that cats are probably hearing time speeding up and slowing down or something all the time, and that what we hear as being musical organization and a coherent train of thought just doesn't sound like a coherent train of thought to them. But at the same time, they seem to respond to the music. My cats love it when I listen to music with them more than anything, you know. But I believe that that it's because they feel the feelings that you're feeling when you're listening to it, you know. I believe there's that cats that cats hear they feel what you're feeling, and they're from what I'm told, their thoughts are they think more in pictures, and they don't think in words, and you can transfer the pictures in your mind to your animal, and so I think that they must be feeling what I'm feeling, just in the same way that, again, you know, with sex, it's like when both people are gradually causing each other to feel the same thing as one another. And when people come to a show, by the power of the music, the audience is generally all feeling more or less the same thing, you know, altered a bit by one person's personality or one person's capacity to feel to another's, but basically they're all feeling what each other's feeling. And I think that's what's taking place when when an animal owner really loves their animal and their dog comes running when they hear them playing the piano. I think they really like hearing them play the piano because it's when their family member is feeling what they're feeling, and they like being in a room with that energetic current flowing through it. So yeah, I think they hear the sound, but I don't think they experience it the same way that we do. But I think they still experience it, and the end result is still the same feeling, most likely, you know. At least that's the way I've put it together. One of the most beautiful things that I think about live music is the fact that for the period of time that those people are in the place, assuming that all the people came there because they love, because the music generates the feelings in them that the music dictates. They're all generally feeling the same thing. They're all basically feeling good at the same time. They've all put all their thoughts about their everyday life out of their head, all their worries. They're just not on their mind. The power of music has joined all their consciousnesses into one thing. You know, they're literally functioning as one organism. You know, and they're all feeling more or less the same thing. And you know, it's no different than you know, when people are when people have sex and they gradually cause each other to feel what the other one is feeling. You know, in any event, it's at a sporting event, it's the same thing. Everybody is connected to the things that are taking place and the emotions that it arouses in them, and it unites people in a way that in their everyday lives, it's a part of the tragedy of existence. We're all alone in here. You know, there's no escape from that. You know, you're inside your body whether you like it or not, and so to be able to feel that what's in you is in everybody around you, I think is your ability to experience the real truth of what's really going on, that it's all one thing, you know.